Hello, hello, Guardians. How have you been? Welcome back, everyone. Kaz PhD here. It has been 8 months since my last video. Where have I been? Well, honestly, I've been lost, turned around, demotivated, frustrated, and uninspired. It has been a really hard year to be a fan of Destiny and Bungie, and through all of that, I lost a lot of desire and willpower to continue making content. From nearly every angle, I felt the effort to be much, much more than the benefit. However, as we turn the corner and with the final shape approaching, I wanted to share my experience, in the hope that doing so will accomplish 3 things. Explain my absence, rid myself of these negative feelings, and maybe provide help and inspiration to you. Not the brightest of videos to return to, but I think it's important to cover this. Before I go further, I will remind you that timestamps, chapters, full video transcript, and links to my other communities can be found in the description below. I speak from the heart here, but I find a script easier to manage. While I've been away from YouTube, I have remained semi-active on Twitch, streaming most nights, so if you want to hang out with us, please join the Discord and Twitch channels below. Let's go back to over a year ago, to Lightfall. Now, contrary to most, I actually don't have a problem with Lightfall, or rather a new problem with it. Sure, I have issues with the lack of development of its characters and setting over the year, but hey, the church in Trostland is still full of holes, so what can I expect? No, I believe the main issue with Lightfall was a lack of communication on Bungie's part, and a shift in the purpose and use of seasons and expansions. Quite simply, expansion stories are generally considered big main chapters with the culmination of the story before. A villain is hinted at, a threat approaches, introduced, and then ultimately defeated in the campaign. As such, Destiny's expansions are often used as the ending point of stories, but Lightfall seemingly was used as the beginning, namely the beginning of the real and present threat of the Witness. We could sit back and complain about the dialogue, the rushed action, the imbalanced presence of Strand, but for me, a lot of Lightfall's issues would have been softened or solved if we had known more about this shift beforehand. Arguably, the shift toward the seasonal model and using Lightfall as the beginning of something should have also come with further development of the setting and characters, but that didn't quite happen. I shouldn't be surprised. Again, Europa was introduced. The Fallen built an empire. They built an entire amazing city down there. And we're only just now getting a Crucible map of it. Bungie likes to make big things, use them once, and then move on. Now, I'm not going to spend the entire video complaining, and I'm being a bit harsh because I'm usually quite reserved. I actually liked Lightfall, and I felt like I understood where things were going. But the community's response, and the constant response, really set me back. Destiny is the first franchise that I followed this closely with the community. Before Destiny, I was not on Reddit, didn't know about Twitch or Discord, and knew very little about gaming studios, developers, or anything like that. Like a guardian risen anew, I began this journey in 2014, and I've grown a lot since. However, by this time last year, I was maybe too invested in Destiny. I didn't play anything else. My entire Twitter, Reddit, and Discord feeds were all about Bungie and Destiny. It was my main hobby, my main creative outlet, and consumed a lot of my time and attention. I followed every tweet, read every discussion I could, watched a lot of other creators' videos. It was a lot. I didn't realize how intense it had gotten. I had seen others with this same issue who presented it more clearly when they made crazy rants over the smallest of problems, but I didn't recognize that within myself. But the community's response to Lightfall struck a blow. I got tired of the conversation. I got tired of streaming, didn't feel motivated to make videos, so I backed off. However, I had spent several years surrounding myself in Destiny. So when I tried to back away, I couldn't. Suddenly, my hobby and passion became almost a prison or a torturous echo chamber. I thought if I gave myself some time, things would settle down, and while that ultimately became true, it didn't prepare me for what happened next. Amanda Holliday's death. I took it quite hard, for multiple reasons. First, the death of the character itself was quite crushing. I really liked Holliday. She had a good attitude, was a good friend and character, and she wasn't a Guardian. I really like fleshing out the story beyond the Guardians, and Holliday did just that. Heck, her original familial migration to the tower gives us the greatest hints as to where the last city is located. Beyond that, Holliday was just great, and as present and heroic as anyone else in the Destiny universe. So her death sucked. It hit me hard, and so did hearing Zavala's eulogy. Of course, his eulogy was punctuated by the passing of the voice actor, Lance Reddick. Actor, all-around great human being. I don't think I have the words to convey my feelings here. Lance was a great person and a great leader, even outside of the game. In-game, he was Zavala. The Titan's Titan, the Rock. The one I could point to when I needed to be reminded what a hero was. In short, my inspiration. Beyond the plot point of Holliday's death, the direction of Destiny's story really bothered me. As I said, I liked Lightfall well enough, but I too was frustrated by the pacing and delivery of information. Discovering Neomuna was really cool, especially with the hints given during the Spire of the Watcher dungeon leading up to it. But Nezarec, Osiris, and the plot of Lightfall felt really arbitrary and rushed. Visions or not, how did Osiris know so much about Neomuna and the Witness's plans? And if he did know, why did he not tell us details before? There's plenty of lore about Osiris not being taken seriously or being coddled due to losing his light, and Osiris has had a history of being a zealot. But he's also had a history of being right, especially about things that threaten us. So, like many, racing around Neomuna while Osiris shouted from a place of authority, it was frustrating. I can understand his urgency and his grumpy-turned-mentor character arc, but I've had an issue with the arbitrary nature of Destiny for some time. Flash forward to Amanda's death, an arbitrary decision, an event that looked quite preventable for a threat that no one really understood, that wasn't communicated properly. Why were people being kidnapped? Also, how? We've been told many times that humanity is pretty much all living in the last city, with some on the farm and a single web lore mentioning nearly mythical free capitals. And yet, there are enough people living outside the protection of the city that we must stage a season-long campaign to rescue all of them? Arbitrary, with no lead-in or support from the game's story or lore. Amanda's death. Just to add drama? Well, it did, and not the kind I like. If the Witness's reasons and threat were made more clear in the beginning, if the lead up to the final moment made it seem like the absolute only thing that could be done, then all of this would have been easier to take. But it wasn't, so it wasn't. Arbitrary. I won't go through the rest of the seasons, though I probably could. I enjoyed parts of them. I enjoyed a lot of them. But it felt really frustrating at the same time. Destiny is an incredible universe, and one of its greatest strengths was demonstrated this year as one of its chief narrative weaknesses, which is the absolute Mad Lib's ability for anything to happen. What I mean to say is, you could take literally any character, faction, event, and combine it with another, and it'll probably make some kind of sense. Here, I'll try one. Actually, I'll try two. The one I wrote down, and I'll make up one right now. The one I wrote down was the Cabal drink Vex milk, becoming Pseudo-Vex, who, using the Oxa machine and Vault of Glass, wish to save Tora Bottle, which would undo reality similar to the Curse of Osiris campaign or Season of Dawn. Right? That's the one I wrote down. Making up one, the long-lost fallen pirates become Takenified, end up under the control of Toland, and plunge the world into darkness. Well, that was kind of season of what was season of not dang it, I can't remember. This is where you go for going off script. You know, The Endless Night. I made a video on it, can't remember. Great lore guy. Anyway, lore bingo is a thing. We've even played it on stream, where we took random ideas from our viewers and tried to explore how they would make sense and what that would mean for the game. And while I love that, I don't love stories always coming out of nowhere, with no real support from the existing lore. What's worse is retconning, which I won't get into here, but can be a problem as well. Finally, on the narrative front, an issue I've had with the past year has been the narrowing of the lore. See, I classify Destiny's narrative in two parts, its story and its lore. The former being what is presented in the main game as part of the main plot. If you were to graph the presence and importance of each in the Destiny franchise, you would see an inversely proportional development. What I mean by this, in Destiny 1, the lore represented 90% of what was going on in the Destiny universe, and the game story was 10%. Obviously, my own percentages, feel free to correct me in the comments, but in Destiny 2, those numbers shifted, and especially after Season of Arrivals. For the past few years, we've had a much clearer, better presented story that has also been supported by additional lore and dialogue. However, at the same time, and much worse this past year, the lore has been focusing on the story so much that it has neglected its original purpose, to flesh out the Destiny universe. We went from having a weekly story and a seemingly unrelated lore card that hinted at other things, to having the lore and story go hand in hand, to the point where I'm not even interested in reading the lore anymore because it simply is an expansion of what I just played. For example, you do a mission where you save Asa, and your lore card is about how Asa is tired but thankful. Instead of lore hinting at other things or fleshing out the world, it's become too much of an extension of the main story. So for all of those reasons, Destiny's story and lore really pushed me away from engaging with them. I went from reading and noting and categorizing everything to not even wanting to check what new lore was out there. Me, a guy who loves story over everything else, not interested anymore. Cut to the end of October last year. I was feeling quite distant from the game, needing a break, but not yet having found my way forward. Then Bungie went and laid off 8% of their workforce. Then we hear that they missed revenue goals by, 45% or something? It was a really hard time. Again, Destiny and Bungie were the first game and franchise that I cared this much about. When that news broke, it broke me. I saw so many talented, wonderful, communicative, kind, caring people kicked out the door, and there were enough rumors flying around concerning how it was done to bear believing. People called into the office just to be fired, people laid off at the end of the month so no cost or coverage would ensue. It was a mess, and it really hurt my perception of Bungie. Now, in fairness, I had developed quite a soft spot for the company. For as long as I had been following them, Bungie seemed like a company that cared. While we can all debate that, I personally felt like they were doing their best for their people and players, holding off on crunch, making changes, albeit slowly, based on feedback, and even putting social causes ahead of their own. I felt like Bungie was like no other company. Maybe they were, or maybe they weren't. Maybe the Sony deal changed things. Maybe it brought hidden things to the surface. Whatever the case, a choice was made, and it soured my view of the company. We'll come around to the light, to positive stuff later, as is my modus operandi, but I want to live in this for a moment, as I did back in November. Already frustrated and tired of the game, and the incessant discourse in the community, I really needed to back away. I stopped streaming, I stopped gaming, I spent far less time on various platforms. Another thing for you all to consider is that I live in France. I am from Canada and moved here years ago. However, learning the language has proven challenging, and given my growth online and introverted hobbies, I don't really have much of a social life here. So when I backed away from all things Destiny, it left me feeling quite alone. I wasn't, and I'm working on all of that, supported by my wonderful fiance, whose art is seen here, by the way. But this hit me harder than it might have if I could have just gone and visited friends and forgotten about Destiny. So, have things changed? Yes, thankfully they did. I began to play other games. Not only has this been great in exploring other experiences and stories, but it made it easier to return to Destiny. In addition, I have continued streaming and have performed surgery when it comes to conversations and social media. My platforms are not so singularly focused, and while there's always room for debate and discussion in my community, I found ways to keep it constructive and focused, so that I do not get stuck in spirals anymore. I've backed off from a lot of conversations and found ways to continue following the developments of the game without getting sucked into problematic discussions or wasting my energy and time. I've thought long about what I find interesting and important, and have made efforts toward focusing on that, instead of focusing on everything, leading to too much. I've also had to rewrite my perceptions regarding Bungie, the company. I love the game and I generally like the company, but the pressures of capitalism are ever present and difficult to distinguish or separate from businesses operating from within. In short, Bungie is a company and they will make decisions that follow the industry. Destiny's story and lore seem to also be finally beginning to change direction. It seems that the final shape and even Into the Light before it recognize the importance of mystery and lore in fleshing out the game's experience. Only time will tell if that will truly be the case, if Destiny's lore will entice me again, draw me in, make me wonder what comes next, and prove engaging. As we come to the end of the video, I wanted to put everything together and talk about the future of this channel and my platforms. In short, it has been a hard year, and for numerous reasons. I've been uninterested in making videos. Despite my efforts to streamline the process, it still takes a lot of time and effort to make even the simplest of videos. As such, as I became very demotivated, videos were the first to drop off. However, I feel motivation returning. I'm enjoying the game again, I'm playing more often, and even reading the lore again. I hope to continue with this channel. I hope to continue finding interesting things to talk about and sharing them with you in a way that I hope you find interesting. In the meantime, I have found greater frequency on Twitch, link below, and you can find me there most nights. While I will work on putting videos up here, Twitch is generally far easier to do when life is tough and time is short. Additionally, I'm thinking of changing this channel's name. I've dabbled in the stories of other games in the past, but kept the channel called Embrace Destiny, owing to its origins, its imagery, and because it's the same name as my Discord server. However, I may end up changing the channel to Kaz PhD, as that may help people find it easier and allows for more flexibility in some ways. If you have thoughts on that, please let me know in the comments. I know this was a long, probably tough video to hear. I know that it's not fun to listen to anyone complain. I hope that I accomplished what I set out to do. I do feel better having written this and spoken aloud, and I hope it explains why this channel has been so quiet. Finally, I hope this video has helped you. If you have felt burnt out or frustrated or demotivated, I hope at the very least my example has helped you feel less alone. Bungie and Destiny can be great, and we can enjoy them at our own pace. Lots of other stuff exists as well and is deserving of our time and attention. As always, balance is hard to maintain, but worth pursuing. If you've been having a rough time of things and wish to vent, feel free to use the comments below, though I do ask we all remain civil. If you wish to join a Discord that will support you as you play Destiny or other games, please see the link in the video description. Thank you all very much for watching and listening. I appreciate it more than you know. As always, be safe, be kind, and I'll see you next time, Guardians. Bye now.